Hey there, you're looking kind of cute. Don't forget to subscribe and check out all my other socials. Enjoy. The afternoon sun beat down relentlessly on the balcony as Emmett tugged nervously at the hem of his floral sundress. He'd been planning this moment for weeks, waiting for the perfect opportunity to explore a side of himself he'd kept hidden for far too long. With his wife away at work, he'd finally mustered the courage to slip into her clothes and embrace his feminine alter ego, Jane. Emmett admired his reflection in the sliding glass door, marveling at how the dress hugged his curves in all the right places. He'd spent hours practicing his makeup, and the results were impressive. Subtle eyeshadow, a hint of blush, and glossy lips completed the transformation. His wig, a cascade of chestnut waves, framed his face perfectly. "You've got this, Jane," he whispered to himself, his voice pitched higher than usual. Just a quick stroll around the apartment to get used to these heels. As he turned to head back inside, a gust of wind slammed the balcony door shut with a resounding thud. Emmett's heart sank as he heard the unmistakable click of the lock engaging. "No, no, no," he muttered, yanking frantically at the handle. The door refused to budge. Panic began to set in as the reality of his situation dawned on him. Here he was, trapped on the balcony of his third-floor apartment, dressed as a woman with no way to get back inside. Emmett took a deep breath, trying to calm his racing thoughts. He couldn't call his wife. How would he explain this? And the spare key was safely tucked away inside the apartment, far out of reach. As the sun continued to beat down, he realized he had only one option. He'd have to ask a neighbor for help. Peering over the railing, Emmett spotted Mrs. Jennings, the retired schoolteacher from the apartment below, tending to her window boxes. He hesitated, knowing how much of a gossip she could be, but desperation won out. "Excuse me, Mrs. Jennings?" he called out, pitching his voice higher in an attempt to maintain his feminine persona. "Could you help me, please? I'm locked out." Mrs. Jennings looked up, squinting against the sun. "Who's that? I don't recognize you, dear." Emmett's mind raced. "I'm Jane. I'm house-sitting for the Fosters while they're away." The lie tumbled out before he could stop it. Mrs. Jennings frowned, clearly skeptical. "The Fosters, you say? That's odd. I just saw Mrs. Foster leave for work this morning." Emmett felt a bead of sweat trickle down his back, and it wasn't just from the heat. "Oh, yes. She had to pop into the office unexpectedly, but I'm supposed to be here all week, you see. And I've managed to lock myself out on the balcony." The older woman's eyes narrowed as she studied Emmett's face. "You look awfully familiar, dear. Are you related to the Fosters?" "Distant cousin," Emmett blurted out, his voice cracking slightly. He cleared his throat and tried again. "On Mrs. Foster's side. That's why she trusted me with the apartment." Mrs. Jennings didn't look entirely convinced, but she nodded slowly. "Well, I suppose we can't leave you out there all day. Let me call the building manager. He should have a master key." Relief washed over Emmett, quickly followed by a new wave of panic. The building manager knew him, too. How was he going to explain this? "Oh, that's so kind of you," he called down, his mind scrambling for a solution. "But, I'd hate to bother Mr. Rodriguez. Is there any chance you could help me climb down to your balcony? I'm sure I could make it if you guided me." Mrs. Jennings gasped. "Heavens, no, that's far too dangerous. You just sit tight, dear. I'll get help." Before Emmett could protest further, she disappeared back into her apartment. He slumped against the railing, his mind whirling. This was quickly spiraling out of control. Minutes ticked by like hours as Emmett paced the small balcony, the click of his heels echoing in the afternoon quiet. He tried to think of a way out of this mess, but each scenario seemed worse than the last. Just as he was considering making a desperate leap to the nearby tree, he heard voices approaching from inside the apartment. "Just doesn't add up, Mr. Rodriguez. I've never seen this woman before, and the Fosters didn't mention any house sitter." Emmett's breath caught in his throat as he recognized Mrs. Jennings' voice, accompanied by the heavy footsteps of the building manager. This was it. His secret was about to be exposed in the most humiliating way possible. The sliding door rattled, and Emmett steeled himself for the inevitable. As it slid open, he found himself face to face with a very confused Mr. Rodriguez and a suspicious Mrs. Jennings. Mr. Foster? Mr. Rodriguez's eyes widened in shock as he took in Emmett's appearance. Is that you? Emmett's cheeks burned with embarrassment. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. The silence stretched on, broken only by Mrs. Jennings' gasp of realization. "Oh my," she whispered, her hand flying to her mouth. "Emmett, what on earth?" Emmett closed his eyes, wishing he could disappear. When he opened them again, both neighbors were still staring at him, waiting for an explanation. He took a deep breath, knowing there was no way out but through. I can't explain," he began, his voice trembling. I needed to explore this part of myself. I never meant for anyone to find out like this." Mr. Rodriguez's expression softened slightly. "Why don't you come inside, Mr. Foster? I think we all need to have a talk." Emmett nodded mutely, following them into the cool apartment. As the door slid shut behind him, he realized his life would never be the same after today. But as terrifying as that thought was, there was also a glimmer of relief. His secret was out, for better or worse. Mrs. Jennings bustled into the kitchen, returning moments later with a tray of iced tea. "I think we could all use a drink," she said, her voice gentler than before. "Now, Emmett, dear, why don't you tell us what's going on?" Emmett sank into an armchair, careful to smooth his skirt as he sat. He accepted a glass of tea with shaking hands, taking a long sip to steel his nerves. I've always felt different," he began, his voice barely above a whisper, "like there was a part of me that didn't quite fit with who I was supposed to be." Mr. Rodriguez nodded encouragingly. "Go on, Mr. Foster, we're listening." "I've been dressing up in private for years," Emmett continued, the words tumbling out now that he'd started. "It's the only time I feel truly like myself, but I've never had the courage to tell anyone, not even my wife." Mrs. Jennings leaned forward, her earlier suspicion replaced by concern. "Oh, Emmett, that must have been such a burden to carry alone." Emmett nodded, feeling tears prick at the corners of his eyes. "I thought I could keep it a secret forever, but then today, when Mary left for work, I wanted to feel the sun on my face, to be myself out in the open, even if it was just for a moment." "And then you got locked out," Mr. Rodriguez finished, a hint of a smile tugging at his lips. "Yes," Emmett said, managing a weak laugh. "Not my finest moment." The three sat in silence for a moment, the weight of Emmett's confession hanging in the air. Finally, Mrs. Jennings spoke up. "Well, I must say, you do make a rather lovely woman, Emmett. Your makeup is impeccable." Emmett blinked in surprise, a cautious smile spreading across his face. "Thank you. I've had a lot of practice." Mr. Rodriguez cleared his throat. "Mr. Foster, Emmett, I want you to know that your secret is safe with us. What you do in the privacy of your own home is your business." "Absolutely," Mrs. Jennings agreed. "Though I must admit I'm a bit hurt you didn't trust me enough to come to me sooner. I may be old, dear, but I'm not as closed-minded as you might think." Emmett felt a weight lift from his shoulders. I don't know what to say. Thank you both for being so understanding." "We're your neighbors, Emmett," Mr. Rodriguez said warmly. "We look out for each other here." As the conversation continued, Emmett found himself opening up more than he ever had before. He shared stories of his struggles with gender identity, his fears of rejection, and his hopes for the future. Mrs. Jennings and Mr. Rodriguez listened attentively, offering words of support and asking thoughtful questions. Hours passed, and the sun began to set, casting a warm glow through the windows. Emmett glanced at the clock, realizing with a start that Mary would be home soon. "Oh no," he gasped. "My wife, she'll be back any minute. I need to change." Mrs. Jennings patted his hand reassuringly. "Go on, dear. We'll make ourselves scarce. But remember, you're not alone anymore. "If you ever need to talk, my door is always open." Emmett nodded gratefully, rushing to the bedroom to transform back into his male persona. As he wiped away the last traces of makeup, he caught his reflection in the mirror. For the first time in years, he saw hope in his eyes. When Mary returned home, she found Emmett in his usual attire, sitting on the couch with a book. "How was your day, honey?" she asked, kissing him on the cheek. Emmett smiled, a newfound confidence in his voice. "It was transformative," he replied. "Actually, there's something I'd like to talk to you about." As he began to share his truth with his wife, Emmett felt a sense of peace wash over him. The road ahead might be challenging, but he was no longer walking it alone. And it had all started with an accidental lockout and two unexpectedly understanding neighbors. In the days and weeks that followed, Emmett's life underwent a profound transformation. With the support of Mrs. Jennings and Mr. Rodriguez, he found the courage to be more open about his identity, not just with Mary, but with other friends and family members as well. Mary's initial shock gave way to a deep well of love and acceptance. Though it took time for her to fully understand and adjust, she stood by Emmett's side, helping him navigate this new chapter in their lives together. They had long, heartfelt conversations about Emmett's feelings, his struggles, and his hopes for the future. Mary even surprised him by bringing home a beautiful dress she'd seen in a boutique window, saying she thought it would suit him perfectly. Mrs. Jennings, true to her word, became a pillar of support for Emmett. She invited him over for tea regularly, always addressing him as Jane when he was dressed in feminine attire. Her acceptance and genuine interest in understanding his journey touched Emmett deeply. She even offered to help him refine his makeup techniques, drawing on her years of experience. "You know, dear," she said one afternoon as they sat on her balcony, Emmett dressed in a flowing summer dress, "I had a cousin who went through something similar back in the 60s. It wasn't easy for her, but she lived her truth. I always admired her courage." Emmett smiled, touched by the revelation. "Thank you for sharing that with me, Mrs. Jennings. It means more than you know." Mr. Rodriguez, for his part, made sure that Emmett felt safe and respected in the building. He had a quiet word with the other residents, emphasizing the importance of privacy and acceptance. When Emmett finally felt brave enough to venture out as Jane beyond the confines of his apartment, he found nothing but polite nods and friendly smiles from his neighbors. As summer turned to fall, Emmett found himself spending more and more time as Jane. He started with short walks in the park, reveling in the feeling of the breeze against his skin and the swish of fabric around his legs. Mary often accompanied him, holding his hand and beaming with pride at her spouse's growing confidence. One crisp October evening, as they strolled together under trees ablaze with autumn colors, Mary squeezed Emmett's hand. "You know, I fall in love with you more every day," she said softly. "Seeing you like this, so happy and free, it's beautiful." Emmett's eyes welled up with tears of joy. "I couldn't have done any of this without you," he replied, his voice thick with emotion. "Your love and support mean everything to me." As they walked, Emmett reflected on how much his life had changed in just a few short months. The fear and shame that had once consumed him had given way to a sense of liberation and self-acceptance. He thought back to that fateful day on the balcony, marveling at how a moment of crisis had led to such profound personal growth. Of course, not every day was easy. There were still moments of doubt, of dysphoria, of fear about how the wider world might react. But Emmett no longer faced these challenges alone. He had a support system now, people who loved and accepted him for who he truly was. Mrs. Jennings had introduced him to a support group for individuals exploring their gender identity. At first, Emmett had been hesitant to attend, but he found immense comfort in connecting with others who shared similar experiences. The group became a safe space where he could express his fears, celebrate his victories, and learn from others further along in their journeys. As winter approached, Emmett decided it was time to take another big step. With Mary's encouragement, he made an appointment with a gender therapist to explore his feelings more deeply and discuss potential next steps in his transition. The night before his first appointment, Emmett stood before the mirror in their bedroom, dressed in a cozy sweater dress and leggings. Mary came up behind him, wrapping her arms around his waist and resting her chin on his shoulder. "How are you feeling about tomorrow?" she asked gently. Emmett took a deep breath, meeting her eyes in the reflection. "Nervous," he admitted, "but excited too. It feels like I'm finally on the right path, you know?" Mary nodded, smiling warmly. "I know, and I'm so proud of you, my love. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together." As they stood there, holding each other close, Emmett thought back to that summer afternoon when he'd been locked out on the balcony. What had seemed like a disaster at the time had turned out to be the key that unlocked a whole new life for him. He silently thanked whatever twist of fate had slammed that door shut, setting him on this incredible journey of self-discovery and acceptance. The following morning, as Emmett prepared to leave for his appointment, he found a small package outside their door. Inside was a delicate silver necklace with a key pendant, along with a note in Mrs. Jennings' elegant handwriting. "Dear Jane, never forget that you hold the key to your own happiness. Wishing you all the best as you continue on your journey. With love, Mrs. J." Emmett clasped the necklace around his neck, feeling a surge of gratitude for the unexpected allies he'd found as he stepped out into the world. Ready to embrace whatever the future held, he knew that he was exactly where he was meant to be. The seasons continued to change, and with them, Emmett's life evolved in ways he never could have imagined. His sessions with the gender therapist proved to be invaluable, helping him navigate the complex emotions and decisions that came with his journey. With each passing week, he felt more comfortable in his own skin, more confident in his identity as Jane. Spring arrived, bringing with it a sense of renewal and possibility. Emmett and Mary had many long conversations about the future, discussing everything from potential medical transitions to how they would handle public situations. Through it all, their love and commitment to each other only grew stronger. One sunny afternoon, as cherry blossoms drifted on the breeze, Emmett decided it was time for another significant step. He invited Mrs. Jennings and Mr. Rodriguez over for dinner, along with a few close friends who had been supportive throughout his journey. It would be the first time many of them would see him fully presenting as Jane in a social setting. As he prepared for the evening, Emmett felt a familiar flutter of nerves in his stomach. He slipped into an elegant navy blue cocktail dress that Mary had helped him pick out, carefully applied his makeup, and styled his wig into soft waves. Looking in the mirror, he barely recognized the confident woman staring back at him. Mary came into the bedroom looking stunning in a green dress that complemented Emmett's outfit perfectly. "You look beautiful, Jane," she said, using the name Emmett had chosen for his feminine identity. "Are you ready for this?" Emmett took a deep breath, smoothing down his dress. "As ready as I'll ever be," he replied with a nervous smile. "Thank you for being here with me." The doorbell rang, and Emmett felt his heart leap into his throat. This was it, the moment of truth. Mary gave his hand a reassuring squeeze before going to answer the door. Mrs. Jennings was the first to arrive, beaming as she entered the apartment. "Jane, darling, you look absolutely radiant," she exclaimed, pulling Emmett into a warm hug. That color is perfect on you." Mr. Rodriguez followed close behind, a bottle of wine in hand. "Mrs. Foster, Jane, you both look lovely," he said with a genuine smile. "Thank you for having us." As the other guests arrived, Emmett felt his nervousness begin to fade. The atmosphere was warm and supportive, filled with laughter and easy conversation. He found himself relaxing, enjoying the simple pleasure of being himself among friends. During dinner, Emmett stood to make a toast. His hand trembled slightly as he raised his glass, but his voice was clear and strong. "I want to thank you all for being here tonight," he began. "A year ago, I never could have imagined standing before you like this. Your love, acceptance, and support have meant more to me than I can ever express." He paused, looking around at the smiling faces of his friends and neighbors. "This journey hasn't been easy, but having all of you by my side has made it possible, to authentic living, to love, and to the family we choose. To Jane, Mary added, raising her glass high. The others echoed the sentiment, and Emmett felt a wave of emotion wash over him. As the evening wound down, Mrs. Jennings pulled Emmett aside. "I have something for you," she said, pressing a small, gift-wrapped box into his hands. "Go on, open it." Inside, Emmett found a beautiful brooch in the shape of a butterfly. "It was my grandmother's," Mrs. Jennings explained. "She always said that butterflies reminded her that change can be beautiful. I thought you should have it." Emmett's eyes welled up with tears as he carefully pinned the brooch to his dress. "Mrs. Jennings, I don't know what to say. Thank you so much." The older woman patted his cheek affectionately. "You've come so far, my dear. I'm honored to have been a part of your transformation." As the last of the guests said their goodbyes, Emmett and Mary stood in the doorway, arms around each other. "How do you feel?" Mary asked, looking up at her spouse with love shining in her eyes. Emmett took a moment to consider the question. "I feel whole," he replied finally. "Like all the pieces of myself have finally come together." Mary leaned up to kiss him softly. "I'm so proud of you, Jane, and I fall more in love with you every day." Thanks for watching. The rest won't be viewable on YouTube, so check out Patreon if you want more. I hope you have a wonderful day, my cutie.